Hello guys, this is Grandmaster Timur Gareyev here, and today I'll share my blindfold chess experiences with you, and hopefully you can learn and improve your over-the-board game as I share the insights. This is very much the attacking game, which is my favorite part of playing blindfold chess, is creating those exciting adventures where my opponents certainly have better chances in a kind of like a stale, boring game, but at the same time, I can optimize my edge and really go for it, and a lot of times deliver a quick attack. So without further ado, let's take a look at the game that I played at UMBC Spectacular. This was a two-part event where I played the classic blindfold exhibition match as well as a knockout match versus top Grandmaster level players from UMBC chess team. But for now, let's focus on my game in a classic exhibition match, and that was versus about I call it 1,000 to 1,500 level player, more like an adult chess player. So we played a Scandinavian, and I played my favorite knight f3, giving black the opportunity to reveal the plans, whether to take with a knight or with a queen, and I could adjust accordingly. Now when the knight takes, I realized that I wanted to play a quicker game, and I decided, even though at that probably wouldn't be the most solid approach in a classical game, I figured I'll create the most complications, kind of like Tal did, let's say, Mikhail Tal. His combinations weren't the most solid necessarily, or solid proof, but they, he made it so difficult for his opponents to be able to respond. Especially a lot of times it had to be done perfectly, and once they messed up, that's when he got them. So here in this situation, I decided to actually, well, first I developed the knight, which is pretty standard. I have a very nice center here, so if this was a normal positional game, I would certainly play a move such as h3. This is a slow-looking move, and it is, but an essential part of White's game at this point. And then develop this bishops, give White center support, and play a nice positional game. But that was my intention for this occasion. I figured I could really get things going, pushing the knight away, and as the knight comes back into the center, I get him with bishop c4, trying to find out what's the knight gonna do next. So black decided to defend the knight, okay, which was one way to go. It probably was wise to just trade the knights, try to castle, but then I would have probably continued in a similar fashion that I played in the game. So bishop comes out to c4, and black plays c6, defending the knight, and at this point I decided to put more pressure on the knight. Queen to b3, so black needs to defend the knight. At this point there's nothing better to do. Well, I guess you could probably castle here, and this is definitely something I would consider. Just sacrifice the pawn and try to get the counterplay going, get the initiative back. So I think castle is actually very interesting at this point. Sacrificing this pawn, let's say knight takes d5, pawn takes, bishop takes, knight c6, with the idea of knight a5 winning this bishop on d5. And if I take on c6, obviously black is going to have the pair of bishops advantage. So this is my approach to chess. But, when the players of, say, 1,500 level players face that pressure, they'll tend to get a little defensive. And black certainly decided to play a solid game, which nothing wrong with this quite yet. I continued with my favorite way, as create more challenges. Looks like black is going to castle towards the king side. Well, why not at least warn him against it and say, hey, I got a little something going on the king side as well. At this point, this is simple math, and this is something that I would love you guys to take away from this video, or generally from my or work that I share with you. Is it's a lot of times chess can be assessed through simple math, which in this situation, look, White's got a couple knights in the game, bishop on c1 is ready to come in. The queen is relatively active. So both kings are kind of in the center trying to decide what to do next. But at the same time, White's got more pieces in the game, you know, 3 or 4 versus 2. And, you know, at this point, better center. Black decided to stop White's kingside approach, which is not bad at all. I think the more subtle way to do that might have been to just play h6. Okay, and this was certainly a better way to go about it, since h5, you could just play g5. Now, here I could also consider maybe developing the bishop over to d2, castling long, and then potentially I might even sacrifice on g5. So Black decided to not even let me play h5 to begin with, but then the problem is I take over the dark squares here. And here, this was truly a positional mistake for Black. Black could have just responded with f6, which looks kind of suspicious, but at the same time is not a big deal at all. As I retreat my bishop, Black can go ahead and castle or play b6, which is really a good way to get some counterplay there on the queen side. I can certainly hit this pawn on g6, and now in order to avoid further calamities, Black doesn't necessarily have to play f5, but can just simply play king f7. Now, this position is certainly not easy for Black. Yeah, this actually looks terrible for Black. Now my knight is coming into d6. So yeah, this is not looking good. So Black really needs to get the king out of the way, go ahead and castle. But certainly White's got the initiative. Yeah, even then, f6 was probably the best way for Black to continue. After bishop f6, Black weakens all of the dark squares, and this just gets terrible. I direct my knight into the middle, putting pressure on the f6 bishop, and Black needs to do something. Trade, and at this point, instead of picking up the bishop right away, I first throw my knight right there in the middle, hit the king, and threaten a fork on f7. And interestingly enough, after some thought, my opponent realized, hey, I can actually defend with f6, pushing the pawn forward. By the way, all of this once again is being done blindfolded, so I'm doing my best to calculate. And a lot of times players ask, well, what do you consider your strength to be as you play blindfolded versus real chess? What would you estimate your rating strength to be? And I say it's actually very close. If you just play one game at a time, like, you know, say myself, you know, or let's pick somebody like Vladimir Kramnik. And I think it was actually him who was saying, hey, you can actually play just as good the one game of chess as you would play it blindfolded. So at times they'll come in with like rapid chess time controls on top of just playing blindfold chess, so that will certainly affect your game. But just overall, playing just one single game blindfold chess on a Grandmaster level is just about the same. But certainly when you adopt all the rest of the boards and how quick you're supposed to respond, in this situation, I figured I had to retreat, which, interestingly enough, I should have actually just come right in on f7. Now, some of you guys might be wondering, well, this is like 2 plus 2. This is just winning the game. Well, here's the trick. Here's what my opponent had up his sleeve, is queen a5 check. And here I realized that, okay, I'm going to move my king, nothing better to do, and Black is going to trap my knight on f7. And this is not good news, because those are the knights that I'm really valuing and trying to do some damage. But interestingly enough, in this position, after subtle queen to c2, g6 is totally falling apart. And as we noted, if black tries to defend with f5, then all of the dark squares are just horrible for black, and white is just going to be dominating here and winning very quickly. So black is going to have to either pick up the knight, which after queen to g6 and rook coming in through h3 to g3 potentially, this is game over. Rook moves to the wrong spot, and queen e8 is going to be leading to a mating attack. Now, queen to c2, and after king to g7, I believe we're just going to bring this rook over to h3 with a similar scenario where we're going to attack the king. But okay. So let's go back. I do retreat over to e4, which is not a big deal. You make a mistake, just keep on going. So black develops, I get my king out of the way, and black gets active with b5. I consider certain active possibilities, but really you gotta be humble and just move the bishop back to e2. Black continues with queen a5, which is just a queen. But, you know, after all, black is trying to do something. I decided to play a little prophylaxis, meaning I'm preparing my position in a way that will prepare best against my opponent's potential actions. So I just move my king a little bit out of the way, hoping that will help my defense. And at this point, certainly I have no intentions of trading the queens, and this is something you guys probably figured out by now. I like the initiative. I like to keep the winning mating chances on the board. So I retreat my queen in direction of the attack. My opponent defends. And at this point I say, hey, I need more pieces in the game. Most of my pieces are super active. I'm just missing that rook in action. So I bring my rook over to h3. And here there's a certain powerful threats that I'm aiming for against black's king. Black, on the other hand, decided to wait no longer and really do something drastic. So black opens up the center, at which point I say, okay, I still got time, and I'm going to use that time to go against black's king. So I continue with bishop to d3. Hitting potential g6 right there. I have all sorts of knight f5 stuff coming up, even potential queen sacrifice right there on g6. That could be interesting. So black decides to defend with knight f8, which is wise. I get the free pawn there on e5. Now certainly black could pick up the rook on h3, but then after e takes f, followed by the queen coming over to e5, and the g5 square being available to the knight, this will lead to the mating attack. Black has no time but to lock it up with f5, at which point I realize that I can actually just ignore black's threat and open up the diagonal, hitting the king here, c3 over to h8. My opponent decides to just pick up the pawn on e6, since taking on e4 leads to the queen coming in, and my pieces easily going after black's king, where black has really a slim chance to survive. Black continues bishop to e6. I bring my queen into the middle. King pulls back. I continue to build up the attack, leading my pieces towards black's king, dominating on the king side. And as black pulls up, I like to keep the tension on the board, but here I realized there's a strong defender done on e6, so why not get rid of him? And as I do that, this opens up new possibilities for my rook to come into play with a lot of strength. So as black moves the king out of the way, I deliver a powerful attack, which you guys probably figured out by now. This is exactly what you would play in a similar scenarios in previous situations that were presented to me during the game. Without further ado, queen takes f5, and this is the finishing sacrifice. Finally, we get that queen sacrifice in. And as black picks up the queen, we're actually gonna mate him in two moves. So bishop takes f5, followed by knight coming into f7. And as queen f5, black defended with knight to f4. This presented an easy task. The queen just comes in over to f7, and this is 2 plus 2 once again, or rather checkmate in 2. In a couple different ways. You can see g6 is hurting, and my opponent resign in this situation. So as a conclusion to this, what do we learn from this game? I say this is really the most valuable skill that you may develop to get the results quick in your game, especially at the kind of say 1200 to 2000 level, okay, where your opponents may still have those holes in their defensive abilities, where if you just get that initiative and truly believe in your attack, you can really throw off your opponent and get them on the defensive. That's when you can employ your tactical ability and strategic development and the build up of the initiative to play for your advantage.